Good morning, everybody. So, this is a continuation of our ambitious project, mine and Nishchala's, to explicate the whole of Walden. And we've given a really long break from this project because we had other commitments. So, we'll continue from the previous episode as usual, we are going to access the text of Walden on Google. So if you type in Walden, PDF into Google search, you'll get the first results. Among the first results, you'll get the WordPress edition of Walden by Henry David Thoreau, right? So, continuing from the previous episode, where we stopped on page 11 of the WordPress edition of Walden, towards the middle of the page, I'll read that quote which Thoreau has made from another author, probably from the Bible. The quote is, "Whatever have been thy failures hitherto, be not afflicted, my child, for who shall assign to thee what thou hast left undone?" So, you may remember that, in life, what Thoreau advises us here is that in life, we don't always meet with success. Life is not a bed of roses. So sometimes we do meet with failures. Whatever have been thy failures hitherto. Hitherto means before this. He advises us, be not afflicted, my child. So don't let it bother you too much, right? Because the future is still untried. So, for who shall assign to thee what thou hast left undone? What you have left undone, the tremendous potential that a person has to still achieve things, no matter what trials and tribulations he has undergone, right? Who shall assign to thee what thou hast left undone? So we stop there. So in the next paragraph, he continues in this vein. A reminder again that we are on page 11 of the WordPress edition, towards the middle of the page. So he continues, "We might try our lives by 1,000 simple tests, as for instance, the same sun which ripens my beans illumines at once a system of earths like ours. If I had remembered this, it would have prevented some mistakes." Right? So we can, we can try our life by 1,000 simple tests. Now, the test is to prove whether all those trials and tribulations, all those worries and anxieties, and whatever negativity or problems that we had, were they really necessary? So he asks us to look up into the sky, and he says, in the sky you see the sun. The sun illumines at once. He ripens his beans, he says. So he was planting a bean field when he was writing this book, Walden, out in the woods. He had built a cabin for himself out in the woods. And he says, this sun ripens my beans. The sun helps the beans to ripen. But the same sun illumines at once a system of earths like ours. So it also illuminates a whole system, the whole solar system, in fact. So you see, man as such is, is a mere mote, M-O-T-E, is only a mere speck in the vastness of the universe. So is it necessary that we, magnify our ego, magnify our ourselves to such an extent that we, commit violence? We commit violence not only against others, but in doing so, we commit violence against ourselves. Is it really necessary? So there are things which are much, much greater than, us as individuals. So the sun, for instance, illumines or illuminates, lights up a whole system of earths like ours, right? So it illuminates the whole solar system. And even, great thinkers, they've had this feeling of their own insignificance in the order of the universe. Thinkers like Newton, for example, who said, I am like a potato bug in a potato. He feels like, he's so insignificant that he's like a potato bug in a potato, in a sack of potatoes, right? The potato is in a sack of potatoes, which is in the hold of a ship, and that ship is carrying a whole cargo of potatoes. So he's one potato bug in a potato, in a sack of potatoes, in the hold of a ship which is sailing across the vast ocean of truth. So truth as such cannot really be grasped by a single human mind. So at most what we can do is we can try to understand ourselves, with the relations that we have with others. We may, try, or we may succeed or we may not succeed. But you see, even great thinkers like Newton had this feeling of their own significance in the vastness of the universe. So, Thoreau, again, I'll read that sentence. If I had remembered this, it would have prevented some mistakes. This was not the light in which I hoed them. Hoeing is agricultural practice, when you remove the weeds from the field. So the light in which he hoed them is not the same light that illumines the earth when it's evening. So you see, the whole, it brings out as the insignificance of individuals, right? The light of the sun changes from, morning till evening. In the morning he may have hoed the fields, but in the evening it's a totally different illumination that he gets, right, from the sunlight. And he continues, the stars are the apexes of what wonderful triangles. So at night, in the night sky, you see stars, and people have made constellations out of the stars. They have seen patterns among the stars. For example, you have the constellation of Orion, which is a great bear, and you have many such patterns which people think they see. So the stars in the night sky, they are the apexes, they are the tips of what wonderful triangles. What distant and different beings in the various mansions of the universe are contemplating the same one at the same moment. So here we have, a sort of, Thoreau was a mystic philosopher, and as such he could sense the reality behind the superficial appearances. So here we have his opinion that, the universe is inhabited. He says, the stars are the apexes of what wonderful triangles, right? What distant and different beings in the various mansions of the universe are contemplating the same one at the same moment. So, observer of the night sky on earth may be looking at one star, but the same star may be being observed by another being elsewhere in the universe, right? So, in the various mansions of the universe, there are different and distant beings which are contemplating the stars, right? Nature and human life are as various as our several constitutions. So, I see we often complain, that person doesn't understand me, or, that person did this or this person did that. So, why don't we understand each other? Why is there not perfect understanding between two people, right? Because nature and human life are as various as our several constitutions. Nature is various. Nature is different. From moment to moment it changes. And human life are also as different as the various constitutions. Constitution of a human being means the physiology of the person, the psychology of a person, the emotional life of a person, the spiritual life of a person. So you see, because we are constituted differently, we may have the same similarity in our physiology. For example, two people's noses, two people's eyes, two people's ears, to even, the two people's size, height, weight, they may all be same, almost similar. But when you come to the thing like, when you come to a thing like the anatomical structure of the brain, there are minor differences which make up, the anatomical differences in the brain. They are the reason why people have different abilities, different capabilities, different aptitudes, different interests. Okay? So, because we cannot be the same, exactly the same as another person, there's no perfect understanding between two people. So, I'll read that sentence again. Nature and human life are as various as our several constitutions. But, progress has been made. In fact, just as medicine has, the field of medicine has progressed to such an extent that doctors can operate remotely by a robotic arm. A doctor in Beijing may operate upon a patient in New York robotically, right? So the physiology of the person is understood to a great extent, right? And so is the psychology of a person. For example, you have a person like Carl Gustav Jung, who has examined the different types of psyche of people. He's divided them into the introverted type and the extroverted type, and how the introverted type behaves in certain situations, how the extroverted type behaves in other situations. So there is a great progress made in bringing two people together. And in fact, if you look at literature as such, or if you look at other such subjects, like so we can come to an understanding. We can come to there's a definite possibility of communication. But each person is different from the other. Nature and human life are as various as our several constitutions. Who shall say what prospect life offers to another? So a person may have a prospect in life. He may have a potential. He may have an interest. He may have an aptitude. But we cannot say that this is the definite thing that will happen to him in the future. So, of course, we would like, for example, if you take the case of our children, we'd like them to be happy and all such things. But, it's according to many thinkers, it's impossible to say what prospect life offers to another. Could a greater miracle take place than for us to look through each other's eyes for an instant? So, in a book called Linda Goodman Sunshines, where the author Linda Goodman, she describes, the various, the astrological characteristics of people born in different months. She says that the characteristic of Pisces, the person born in March, has this characteristic. If he looks at the eyes of a person, then he is able to relive the whole history of the person, the whole psychology, everything. So it's not unknown for people to understand each other in a single glance. So could a greater miracle, so according to Thoreau, this is one of the great miracles. Could a greater miracle take place than for us to look through each other's eyes for an instant? In an instant, in a glance, you could understand each other. We should the world, in our eye, in all the world of the ages. So we go through the whole gamut, G-A-M-U-T, gamut of human experience, because that is what is engraved in the living structure of the person. So we should live in all the ages of the world, in an hour, in all the worlds of the ages. So we'd go through all the engraved history of mankind by looking through the eyes of a single person. It's described in that book called Linda Goodman Sunshines. Pisces, right? History, poetry, mythology. I know of no reading of another's experience so startling as informing as this would be. So, it is a startling experience. It makes you sit up and take note, right? So, to look through the eyes of another person. So, we'll continue with this in the next episode. Thank you, Nischala. I hope you upload it soon. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. We're going to continue with the explication of Walden. So, in the previous episode, we saw how Thoreau tells us that it is not necessary that we should be worried or anxious as much as we are over what may be small matters or even what may be great matters. And he tells us that these differences among people arise because each person is different from the other, so there's no perfect understanding or communication possible between people. So now he goes on to expand upon this idea of how imperfect communication or understanding can be. So we are on page 11, towards the bottom of the page, the last paragraph on page 11, and he says, "The greater part of what my neighbors call good, I believe in my soul to be bad. And if I repent of anything, it is very likely to be my good behavior." And so, people have definite opinions of what is good behavior and what is bad behavior. So, what may be good for one person may not be good for another person, right? So, what is sauce for the goose may not always be sauce for the gander, right? What I think of may be good for me may not be what another person thinks of as being good for him or her. So Thoreau says, what his neighbors think is good, he believes in his soul to be bad. So, for example, Thoreau actually mentions how, the people of Concord, the village of Concord, they committed what is called conscious penance. That is, they manned their stores, they manned their shops, they opened the shops at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. and went on tending the shop, went on tending the store till 11 p.m. Okay? Or they engaged in other forms of trade, which are almost like, if a day has 24 hours, they'd indulge in work for about 13, 14 hours, 14 out of 24, such forms of conscious penance. They believed that those types of work are good, and that a man should not be idle, and he must be occupied to keep himself from worse mischief, right? But Thoreau was a believer who felt that there must be a broad margin to life. There must be plenty of leisure in life, right? So what his neighbors believe to be good, he believes in his soul to be bad. And if it is, and he says, if I repent of anything, it is very likely to be my good behavior. He says, if he repents, if he feels sorry about anything, it is most likely to be his good behavior. So, conforming to what others say, and such things, he he would repent if he ever behaved well enough to please his neighbors, right? What demon possessed me that I behaved so well? So maybe he is overcome by sympathy with somebody else, and he too works, about 18 hours out of the 24, and such good behavior, such forms of good behavior, right? He repents. If he repents anything at all, if he feels sorry about anything at all in life, he says, it is very likely to be his good behavior. So he asks, what demon possessed me that I behaved so well? So he must have been possessed by a demon to have behaved so well, he says. You may say the wisest thing you can, old man, you who have lived 70 years, not without honor of a kind. I hear an irresistible voice which invites me away from all that. And so he politely listens to the advice of his seniors. His seniors may be 70 years old. They may have spent 70 summers on this planet, right? And those seniors, they may have had an honor of a kind. Their lives may have been honorable. But he says he hears an irresistible voice which invites me away from all that. He feels that he cannot follow in their footsteps. What his seniors, what his mentors, what his advisors, what his elders have told him to do, he feels that, he cannot. It is against his nature to do what they did. He cannot exactly follow in their footsteps. And he says, one generation abandons the enterprises of another like stranded vessels. So here he makes a sort of a remark which, if you have 2 or 3 generations in a family, the achievements of the first generation are abandoned like stranded vessels by the second generation. Stranded vessels are, ships which have run onto the beach, right? You cannot easily move a ship which is on the beach, right? So just as, you have stranded vessels on a beach, the achievements of the previous generations are abandoned like stranded vessels by the succeeding generations. So, just a minute, we have to, there's some battery problem. We'll continue with this. Thank you.